One of the biggest edges in the past 2 months of drafting has been the consistent overvaluing of Melvin Gordon and the readiness of at least one person per draft to pull the trigger on him in the top of the first round. You know, prior to this news about a potential holdout or trade, I think that it was fair to say that Melvin Gordon was the most overdrafted player in the first round of drafts. You know, it was a coin flip draft to draft as to whether or not he was going to go ahead of David Johnson, and he consistently got drafted over Le'Veon Bell and Joe Mixon. I don't see why a player who hasn't gone over 20 carries in a game since week 13 of 2017 is being regarded like he's a tier above those guys. I mean, don't get me wrong, right? Melvin Gordon is a great player. He was one of my favorite DFS plays on a week-to-week basis last year. I talked about it consistently on the DFS Dose podcast, but this is a guy who gets such a high percentage of his fantasy production from touchdowns, and we know touchdowns year to year are the hardest thing to predict, much more so than yards and receptions. Gordon had the least amount of rushing yards he's had in a single season since being a rookie, and his receptions dropped from 2017, clearly a result of Austin Eckler's success in that role. Now, granted, Gordon did miss 4 games last year, so those numbers only reflect 3/4 of a fantasy season, but from a real world fantasy perspective, the Chargers won all 4 games that he missed. Now, I understand the attempt on Gordon's part to secure financial security when he's young and when he's in his prime, but I just don't know that he really has leverage right now to make this play, right? And in regards to fantasy and the running backs on this team, this is a slight boost to Austin Eckler, but I mean, I saw him get drafted in the 5th round of a draft the other day. I mean, that's insane. You know, he is not going to ascend to Melvin Gordon's role if Gordon were to somehow miss, you know, this year with the Chargers. It would just be a split between him and Justin Jackson. I wouldn't have a problem trying to stack Eckler and Phillip Rivers together because I think that makes a lot of sense. Eckler is going to get a ton of receptions, you know, as it is probably, and it would skyrocket if Gordon were to miss the season. But, you know, if Eckler's ADP can't stay in check, you know, if he starts rising to the 5th and 6th round consistently, I mean, I'm not going to go there personally, and I think that it would just muddy the entire situation. As far as the wide receivers go, the Chargers have one of the better duos in the league atop their depth chart, right? Keenan Allen had over 100 catches and nearly 1,400 yards in 2017, 97 catches for nearly 1,200 yards last year, 6 touchdowns in each. Allen has established that he is that kind of player when he's healthy. He's going to get about 100 catches, over 1,000 yards, and about 6 touchdowns. Now, things were a bit touch and go for him at the start of his career, but I think that the production he's put up over the last 2 years, the production that he's put up over the last 2 years, we can safely put that stuff behind us. He's currently going in drafts as a mid-3rd round pick and the 12th wide receiver off the board, and I think that that's actually a pretty fair price, especially in a 0.5 PPR format. In half-point PPR last year, he finished as the wide receiver 11, which makes sense. You know, between Melvin Gordon, Mike Williams, and the return of Hunter Henry this year, I think it's hard to project Keenan for a high touchdown number. Anything above 6 or 7 touchdowns seems a bit drastic. I wouldn't take him ahead of any of the guys that are being drafted before him, but I wouldn't feel right letting him slip much further. All in all, I would say that his ADP and the value he gives your team are just about in perfect sync. Keenan's a viable player to stack with Rivers, but the guy that I'm most excited to stack with Rivers on this team is Mike Williams. With Tyrell Williams and the 65 targets he had last year gone, it's plausible that Mike Williams' role in this offense could continue to expand. With the return of Hunter Henry, it will give Rivers another stud to throw to in the red zone, but I don't really think that hurts Williams. If anything, both guys will see more one-on-one in that area, and there will be more than enough scoring to go around in this offense. Williams was barely targeted more than Tyrell last year, and his touchdown percentage was much higher. It's definitely possible that he fails to reach value at his current ADP if he can't reach double-digit touchdowns. Again, it's just whether or not you think he's going to hit that mark. He's currently going as the 22nd wide receiver off the board, right around pick 57. While he may have a floor lower than most of the wide receivers in that range due to how much of his production comes from touchdowns rather than receptions and yards, same thing as Melvin Gordon, you know, the ADP makes that risk more acceptable. And we could talk about damn near every video that ceiling is our concern, not floor. I am okay with taking Mike Williams where he's going. I think he's a good value. Hunter Henry. He's a good player, but I don't really understand why he's being drafted where he's being drafted. He had one big touchdown season with 8 touchdowns, and that was before this team added Mike Williams, who's definitely going to impact that. I mean, it's clear as day. He's never had 50 catches in a season, and he's coming off of an injury. Now, does that sound like a guy being drafted as the tight end 5 off the board? I mean, it doesn't to me. I would rather have Evan Ingram. I mean, I would rather have David Njoku even, or someone like Austin Hooper who gets, the catches, something a little bit more predictive year to year, I think. I have 0 Hunter Henry shares right now, and it's purely ADP based. I mean, I like the player that he is. I think that he's going to be productive. I just think that he's being overdrafted. I mean, if his ADP doesn't drop, and I don't see why it would at this point, I don't think that I'm going to have a single Hunter Henry share this year. I mean, I'm just being honest. That's about everybody who's fantasy relevant for the Chargers. However, I mean, if you draft Phillip Rivers, right, I'm not opposed to taking Travis Benjamin as your 18th round pick. I mean, he could do absolutely nothing for your roster in 2019. That's an absolute possibility. But, I mean, the same could be said about almost anybody you're taking with your last pick. Tyrell Williams, like I said, is leaving 65 targets behind. Travis Benjamin had 65 targets in this offense as recently as 2 years ago. For sure, none of the targets that Benjamin's going to get are going to be near the line of scrimmage. He's a deep threat only, but that's the type of player that we want to get in those late final 2 rounds. And he'll probably be 1% owned or less in the $3.5 million best ball championship on draft.com. Nobody's going to draft him, and I think that he just gives you a chance, just a small shot, for a few scattered useful weeks throughout the year. I would only consider him on a roster that I'm drafting Phillip Rivers on. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you've never played on Draft before and you're interested in taking a shot at the $1 million top prize in the Best Ball Championship, you can use promo code UPSIDE when making your first deposit on draft.com, and they will hook you up with a free $3 ticket to a contest of your choice. Once again, that is promo code UPSIDE. Thank you for watching.